When the temperature starts to drop, sometimes you notice a little bit more in the way of the aches and pains that just kind of come out of nowhere. Hey, I'm Thomas DeLauer with Keto-Mojo. I'm going to give you the breakdown on how the ketogenic diet can help you out when it comes down to easing some of those winter blues and that winter pain. See, no one really knows the solid answer as to why we notice a little bit more in the way of joint pain in the winter months, but there are some links to barometric pressure affecting inflammation, and that could be one way that we can look at it. But the reality is that inflammation in general affects our joints. You see, when we're talking about the different pathways in which our body triggers pain, we have to look at something known as the NLRP3 inflammasome. It's a mouthful to say, but we'll just call it the inflammasome for short. You see, the inflammasome is a specific pathway within our bodies that reacts to different things that occur. So for example, if we ingest toxins, or if we take in too much sugar, or if we have even endogenous toxins, things that are triggered within our own bodies, what can happen is this inflammasome gets activated and it triggers the release of additional interleukins, additional cytokines that trigger inflammation. So when we're looking at conditions like arthritis or any kind of chronic joint pain, we're usually linking it back again to that NLRP3 inflammasome, because what's happening is, from an inflammatory standpoint, even an immune system standpoint, is our body's immune system and its innate ability to fight off disease and fight off infection is overreacting for one reason or another. Now, in the case of like rheumatoid arthritis, usually it's some kind of autoimmune issue. Our body is literally fighting off a specific joint for one reason or another. Now, in the case of traditional osteoarthritis, we're usually looking at little bouts of inflammation that are occurring from external causes at some point. So overuse in the past, et cetera, et cetera. But it still all comes down to that inflammasome and inflammation. You see, if that inflammasome did not exist, then we would never have the pathway to ultimately trigger that inflammation. Now, that could be good and that could be bad. We need to trigger that inflammation because that's how we're going to actually heal. But when it's chronic and it never stops, you're in a constant state of pain. So where does the ketogenic diet come into place? Well, it comes into play when we're looking at the NLRP3 inflammasome and how ketones actually shut that pathway off. See, there was actually a study that was published in the journal Nature Medicine that literally found that beta-hydroxybutyrate, the main ketone body, and again, the ketone body that you're testing with the Keto-Mojo meter, actually stops the NLRP3 inflammasome pathway, literally stops it in its tracks. So that means that you have the ability to blunt inflammation through that specific pathway. Now, by blunting inflammation through that pathway, you're also blunting the activation of what is called interleukin-1 beta and also interleukin-18. These are two specific inflammatory cytokines that have very close relationships with our joints. So when it gets cold out and we're feeling the effects of inflammation a little bit more, you're just feeling the effects of these cytokines, these interleukins, a lot more. So that means you can experience a pretty profound difference in how you feel by going on the ketogenic diet, especially during the winter months, because you're blocking what is normally triggered more or felt more when it's cold outside. So if you're someone that's experiencing joint pain this winter, or you're just experiencing joint pain in general, you might find that when you start the ketogenic diet, the joint pain just kind of dissolves, or it just doesn't seem as profound. You don't feel it quite as much. And quite honestly, it's simply because of that good old-fashioned beta-hydroxybutyrate floating through your bloodstream. So if you want to make sure that you have good amounts of BHB floating through your bloodstream, you want to make sure you're in that deep state of ketosis that's going to get you the results and relieve you from the pain that you're trying to get rid of, you're going to want to utilize the Keto-Mojo meter. This way you can test your blood and test your ketone levels to make sure that what you're feeling is real. So as always, make sure you're keeping it locked in here with Keto-Mojo. See you in the next video.